In this video, I'm going to talk about the 7 reasons why your book isn't selling. So number 1 is you have an unclear genre. So people will look at your book or your book cover or your Amazon page and they won't immediately know what genre it is, what type of book it is, what type of authors or books it's similar to, who the book is for. A lot of that can be done with the right cover. Not only does it need to attract attention and be attractive to your audience, but it also needs to very clearly define the genre with the right professional choice of fonts, because fonts dictate the genre. A professional book designer will know what type of fonts to choose. A cheaper book cover designer may be able to make a nice cover that just doesn't work or doesn't communicate genre. So if you don't clearly fit in one genre, if you're multi-genre, that's okay, but you still have to pick some and try to attract to that audience. You have to know what your audience is before you can try to appeal to their tastes. Also, if you have multiple genres, maybe you're just trying things out and you have 5 different books that are completely separate, that's going to be a challenge for you. If you have romantic comedy and dark horror thriller and children's books all on your Amazon page, that might be one of those times when you need to start thinking of a pen name and breaking them up into different pen names. In Author Central, you can have one account with at least 3 pen names, so it is kind of easy to start breaking those up so they don't show up on the same author account. Number 2 is lackluster covers. I've been a cover designer for about 10 years, and this is the main one. Covers are going to make or break the sale of your book. If your cover doesn't, especially for indie authors, your cover has to do all of the work for you, because if your cover doesn't get them to click on it, they'll never read your description. They'll never know what your book is about. That's one that most authors get wrong, not only because it's difficult to do if you don't have a background in design or you haven't designed lots of book covers, you don't really know what works to sell the book in your genre, and it can be really expensive. So you don't always want to spend a lot of money on a professional designer for a book that might not earn well, and the earning of a book is going to depend on the demand of the market, not necessarily how good it looks or how good the book is, but how many people are willing to pay for the content that you've got. Number 3 is a lackluster description with no keywords. So lackluster description just means maybe it's kind of cliche or general, so it sounds like every other epic fantasy book, but doesn't really hook their interest enough. The trick with description, first of all, you have to have a hookup on top or credibility boosters like reviews that get them to click the read more, because if they don't click read more, they only read that first couple of sentences of the description, they'll never buy the book. You have to, once they've looked at the cover, then they look over at the first couple of sentences. You have to get them to read more before they read the rest of it. But then you need a description that is specific enough that really gets them into the characters and the scene and the setting. You have to position your books by what they're similar to but different from. Just like in business, you have your unique selling proposition. You have to show how your book is different and interesting and unique. So whatever unique features you have in your book, your story, your nonfiction, you have to make sure those are there, and you have to make them in really clear detail. So don't just say, a young hero in a dark forest. Be really descriptive about what those characters look like and the world that they're battling in and what the stakes are, what they're battling for. Number 4 is no reviews. So I get people asking me all the time, like, how do I sell more books? How do I make money as an author? And if you have a book out with less than 10 reviews, I have seen lots of books that have been out for a couple of years and they have less than 10 reviews. That's kind of just not acceptable. You won't be able to sell books with less than 10 reviews. If you have a huge platform, if you have a big backlist or an email list and you've just launched, then yeah, your reviews don't matter very much. But if you're trying to sell a book to a stranger who accidentally finds your book on Amazon, reviews are a huge trust indication. So even if your cover is great and even if your blurb and description is great, they're still probably not going to buy it if there's less than 10 reviews, even if there's less than 25 reviews, or if all of the reviews are 5-star positive ones, they're not going to trust that, because you need to have a few negative reviews in there, a couple 2 or 3 stars, to give credibility to the 5-star reviews. So you don't just want positive reviews, you want a healthy mix, and you want lots of reviews, you want more reviews. So that's almost always a problem if you already have a good cover and a good description. Most of the time, almost nobody is doing all 3 of these things right. So like I said before, I think the 3 main things are your cover, your blurb, description, and your reviews, and there's almost always room for improvement. So if you're not selling books that's probably your problem. Test things out, try new things. But going forward, number 5 is too high a price. I see a lot of new authors who want to position their books like a traditionally published book. If you're self-published, you're not in the same arena. You're not battling the same competition. You need to be competing against the other indie authors who are pricing at $2.99 or $3.99. So if you're pricing your book at $9.99, if you have a specialized nonfiction book that people need, if you have content that people are willing to pay more money for, then that's fine. But if your book isn't selling, the price doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much you charge. Doesn't matter what you're trying to do with your positioning. If nobody's buying the book, if nobody sees the book, if nobody buys it, your Amazon page is invisible. You might as well have not published. So the price doesn't really matter. What you need to be worried about is visibility. Obscurity is a real enemy. So almost always you need to price at about $3.99. That's the ultimate price for most ebooks. It's a good balance between earnings and earnings and visibility. So you can actually probably make more money at $3.99 than you can at $9.99 because you'll be selling more books. But even if you're making the same amount of money, because you're selling more books at $3.99, you'll have much greater visibility, which will snowball you forwards and introduce you to new readers. So it's not just about how much money you think your book is worth or how much you want to get paid. It's about choosing the right price to stay competitive in your market. You don't necessarily have to do 99-cent books. You don't necessarily have to do free book campaigns, although they can really work to get more visibility. But you don't want to just have a book at $9.99 that nobody ever sees and isn't selling, because that's not doing anybody any good. Number 6 is some authors will only have a print version online. So this is kind of common for children's books or maybe specialty printing books where you think, the print book is really what people want. Maybe it's a coffee table book, so there's no value in the ebook. Nobody would want the ebook. You need to make the ebook anyway, because the value of the ebook is that you can give it away for free or you can give it away cheap, which is one way you can get a lot more reviews because the ebook is connected to the paperback. So when you put out a book, if you give away, 1,000 copies of the ebook, you might get 10 or 20 reviews which show up on your paperback book, and you'll sell more copies of the paperback. People will still buy the paperback for kids' books. Like maybe they bought the 99-cent ebook or the free ebook. They downloaded it, they liked it, now they want to give it as a gift, now they want to buy a hard copy. But it's much easier to sell a hard copy if people know it exists. And people won't know it exists if you only have the paperback, because on Amazon, if you're not in bookstores, which most indie authors aren't, Amazon is your bookstore and you have to stay visible. So the way to stay visible is to have a cheaper ebook that stays in the top 20 of your category, ideally, even the top 100 of your category. But you want to push for the top 20 of your category because otherwise you really won't be making any money. Number 7 is, finally, no traffic or visibility. So what most authors think they need is traffic and visibility. And they pay for advertising or promotion to get featured on some website or to show up next to other books. And that can really work as long as the first 6 are taken care of. As long as your book is actually converting. When real readers land on your book, the cover attracts them, it tells them what the genre is, the blurb and description hooks their attention and interest, and the reviews prove the quality. The reviews make them trust that this is a book that's decent enough to spend money on, and the price is something that they don't feel is outrageous. If everything is working, you can sell reasonably well, and you don't have to sell all the time, but if you have a conversion rate of like 10%, that's actually really good. That means you're failing 90% of the time, or if you're advertising, you're throwing away 90% of your money. But if you can get 1 out of 10 sales, and you're advertising at 20 cents per click, but you're making $2 per book, you can still find ways to be profitable as long as everything is converting. So most of the time when authors aren't selling, it's almost always a case of the core platform and not the traffic and visibility. But if you have everything actually working and converting well, then you can try to get more traffic and visibility, which I do a lot with content marketing, which means building organic content that shows up in Google when people search for things. I do a lot of like 25 best mermaid books for young adult readers. Stuff like that will show up on the first page of Google, especially because a lot of fiction authors aren't doing any content marketing like that. I will also start to explore more, like once everything is working for me, And I haven't done a lot of series. I still have a lot of one books. It's harder to do advertising from cold traffic to a paid book. It's a lot easier if you have a longer funnel or a series of books. So I'll be able to spend a lot more money on advertising when I finish some series. But once everything is working well and you are making money and your books are selling, advertising is really where you want to go. It's just not the first step. Almost always authors want a simple, quick fix where they can just pay someone to take care of it and just get people to buy it. That's not going to happen until you revise your covers and your blurb and you get more book reviews. So if you don't know if you have those problems, you can ask someone who knows. I can give you quick feedback if you're in my guerrilla publishing group, but probably that's your problem. So test new things, get a new cover that fits your genre better, that attracts your audience better, rewrite your descriptions or hire someone to help you rewrite your descriptions and get more book reviews. If you have less than 25, keep pushing for more book reviews. I'll have other videos about how to make reviews. I have lots of other videos about some of these specific steps, but this is just a broad overview of what you can do if your books aren't selling. If this was helpful, subscribe to my channel. I'm getting close to 10,000 subscribers and just passed 1 million views. So thanks a lot. Bye-bye.